Welcome to Hot Takes on the Classics. Now, before we begin today's show, we ask that you kindly go like us on the podcast platform of your choice. We'd really love it if you wrote us a glowing review. That's all. That's all I want to ask. And now on with our second season on love. You don't know about me without you have read a book by the name of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. But that ain't no matter. That book was made by Mr. Mark Twain, and he told the truth mainly. There was things he stretched, but mainly he told the truth. That is nothing. I never seen anybody but lied one time or another. Welcome to Hot Takes on the Classics. My name is Tim McIntosh. Emily, that was my best Southern accent.
Hi, Mark.
That was a quote from Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. Emily Mayetta, we are here for our second season, a season on love. We're using C.S. Lewis's book, The Four Loves, as a sort of scaffolding to climb on as we talk about affection, brotherly love, romance, and charity in the classics. We are doing podcasts right now on philia, or friendship, the second of the four loves. I want to, before we jump into this, Emily, last week, 2 weeks ago, guess what I saw, speaking of C.S. Lewis?
What did you see?
I saw his home, his gravesite, and his church.
Right.
Which was just a little bitty church, parish church that he attended. And you can even sit in the pew where he would sit. And you know what was kind of remarkable about it?
What?
It's blocked by a huge pillar, a huge column. So you'd think that like C.S. Lewis would have the best seat in the house, but he was kind of in the low rent pew. He was just a guy. That was one of the things about it. That was like, he was just a guy, in his church.
Yeah. We make him into a saint, but he was just a guy living in Oxford, England, going about his little life. And you got to be a part of it.
Yeah.
That's
I think he took
exciting.
pride in just being a guy. He was a humble man. And that's one of the things we respect so much about him. Hey, sorry for that interlude. Let's talk about Huckleberry Finn.
Back to America. Very much in America. America. Hey, it's appropriate since we are near our nation's founding, or the holiday where we celebrate our nation's founding. It's appropriate, isn't it?
We're recording this on July 3rd.
Yeah, how appropriate. We didn't even think about that. Okay, before we jump into Huck Finn, I have a question for you to start us out.
Yeah.
How do you feel about banning books?
I love it. More, I want to ban. Like, I think the more we ban, the better. No,
Are you
Emily,
serious?
No, of course not. I looked at, so I used to teach at a classics college, and we had about 170 book curriculum. Mm-hmm. And one day I went through the 170 book curriculum to see how many books had been banned
at one time or another.
Mm-hmm. And I included also, had the author been exiled because of the writing. So, like, banning, how do you ban a book? It's not exactly easy in every era. Like, what counts as banning?
Right.
You want to take a wild guess at, like, the number?
Okay, but the exiled authors, I feel, skews it a little bit. But okay. I won't quibble with your what's the word? Criteria.
Yeah. Okay.
Would you say 170?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say 100.
Yeah, that's almost exactly right. It was about 60%.
Really?
So
I got it right. What?
Yeah. Well done. Well done.
Okay, but do we think the exiling of the author is slightly different? I mean, I guess maybe it's not different because, like, Dante's being exiled because he's fallen into the crosshairs of politics, but that's sometimes why they're exiled, right? You know what I mean?
Right. So I don't remember if I would have counted Dante. I think I would have not counted Dante in my little science experiment, but I would have counted somebody like Machiavelli, who wrote The
Yeah.
Prince, who fell out of favor because of The Prince. And I
Because
don't
of The
remember.
Prince.
I think
Yeah,
he was
okay,
briefly
fair enough.
exiled and then came back. So I think my scientific experiment, Emily, had a
Okay.
little bit of sophistication to it.
Okay. So
Thank
from
you very
all,
much.
Okay, I give it to you. From all of that, what's your takeaway?
That often great books speak a truth that is extremely hard to accept.
That's a good one.
What do you think about banning books?
Well, I mean, okay, the easy thing to say is we're against it because
Right,
you
right.
should. We're liberally educated. We can hear differing viewpoints and still have our own viewpoints. We're not afraid of ideas,
Yeah.
right? But then I do think it's somewhat more complicated. And I'm asking you this question because it is super interesting with Huckleberry Finn. It's been banned almost from the time it was written, but for
No kidding.
different reasons, which is what's fascinating about it.
I knew more recently the
Yeah.
reasons that had been banned. Maybe you're going to talk about this, but
Yeah,
earlier I would expect that there were different reasons that Huck
you're
Finn
exactly
was-
right.
Okay.
So
interesting.
interestingly enough, it was banned by the Concord Library in Massachusetts. Guess who was sitting on its board? This is so interesting.
Who?
Louisa May Alcott. Louisa May Alcott was sitting on its board. We just-
Reviewing, like assessing the book?
Yes, and here is what was written. I don't know if she writes this, but I think it's her. It says, quote, "I have examined the book, and my objections to it are these. It deals with a series of adventures of a very low grade of morality. It is couched in the language of a rough, ignorant dialect, and all through its pages there is a systematic use of bad grammar and an employment of rough, coarse, inelegant expressions. It is also very irreverent." Isn't that
That's
funny?
amazing.
Isn't that such a funny, like, church lady pursed lips sort of a thing?
Right. It's so
Like-
funny because Louisa May Alcott, like author of Little Women, so
Exactly.
much exuberance and joy. and,
Exactly.
like a freedom of life in that book that she would kind of, school marm Huck
Yeah.
Finn is so surprising.
Yeah. But, I mean, it is interesting. We heard it in that opening quote. Mark Twain distances himself, right away by giving, he's saying, I am Huck Finn. I mean, he's not saying it, right? But he's distancing himself as the author.
Yeah.
And that is Huck's voice and perspective, which is what's being criticized right there, right, is what everybody says makes the book. And I agree. It is that fact. I mean, and it is sort of a new development in the history of the novel, right? To take on a persona in that way. And not just any persona, but an illiterate, poor, uneducated, orphaned boy, right?
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, it was banned for that. So it's really fascinating. I can't remember. I should have written down the statistic, but since it's been published, it's been banned for one reason or another almost its entire.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
But then again, too, it's also captured people's imagination. So I have this great quote from T.S. Eliot, and he writes this: "Huck has not imagination in the sense in which Tom has it. He has instead vision. He sees the real world, and he does not judge it. He allows it to judge itself. Mark Twain could not have written with that economy and restraint, with just the right details and no more, and leaving to the reader to make his own moral reflections, unless he had been writing in the person of Huck. And the style of the book, which is the style of Huck, is what makes it a far more convincing indictment of slavery than the sensationalist propaganda of Uncle Tom's Cabin."
What a great review. What a great assessment.
What a great assessment. And that is what comes out in it is, we know this about Twain, but it is kind of Twain's persona. He's a pragmatist, right? He's not going to get all hot and bothered with the moral indignation that Uncle Tom's Cabin does. But from that standpoint, he does highlight the problems of slavery. Like Jim is escaping because Jim is going to be separated from his family. His family's, he's going to be sold. This is a moral outrage. But as T.S. Eliot says, it's just the right amount, right? It doesn't verge into that sort of scolding, even of Louisa May Alcott, who bans the book.
Okay, I want you to, can you expand a little bit on what you mean when you say that Mark Twain is a pragmatist? He's a pragmatist as opposed to what, like a moralist?
Yeah. I mean, think about, he's in the milieu of the transcendentalists, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay, explain what our listeners who don't know what a transcendentalist is. Can you walk us through that?
Transcendentalists are writers like Ralph Waldo Emerson. Louisa May Alcott, actually, right? She's grouped in there. Henry David Thoreau. These Northeastern writers who are they American aristocracy? Kind of, right? They're from sort of the most settled parts of the U.S. Go to Harvard, go to Yale, go to the Ivy League colleges. And they really, it's a form of romanticism that sort of emphasizes the divine, but not a personal divine. It's kind of improvement through better living. What else do you want to say about the transcendentalists? Thoreau is changed by nature. That's the message of Walden. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, like self-reliance, right? You want to add to transcendentalism?
Is it a little bit pantheistic?
Yeah,
God
it's
is everywhere.
Indefinite, right?
Yeah.
It's indefinite. Unitarians kind of come out of transcendentalism, right?
And so Twain is writing in a world that's kind of familiar with the transcendentalists, and he is not one of those.
He's a cynic and he's a skeptic.
Yeah.
I just read an interesting essay in First Things about Twain, that why he has endured. And there is sort of this interesting quality. This is the second book that we've done of Mark Twain, because he also wrote Joan of Arc, which he thought was his best novel. But he's cynical and he's skeptical, and you kind of get that. But he also has an ardent spirit in him to some degree, right? But he downplays that. He's more thinking about. We're gonna read a quote that Huck Finn himself sums it up pretty good. Sort of this: I'm not taken in by anybody. I'm not going to get all lovey-dovey. I'm kind of a realist. I'm a cynic. I see things as they are. Huck Finn somehow manages to hold that quality within himself. And that's what Eliot is pointing to, in a way that really, lets the reader see the problems with slavery without being sermonized about slavery.
Yeah. I would love to talk about whether or not you agree with Eliot, and I suspect that you do, that it's the fact that Huck just speaks and observes and doesn't moralize. That's what actually makes his kind of moral vision even more compelling.
Exactly.
You agree with that?
I do.
Maybe later in the show we could talk about why is that? Because that's my perspective on, like, I don't think that Uncle Tom's Cabin is anywhere near as powerful as this book, even though it speaks with like
fiery
volcanic force. Yeah, right.
Fiery. Well, and deep sentimentality, right? Which verges on like unbelievableness, right? So if you're swept up with that, like you're a little bit oozing what are you oozing? Too much gooey, right?
Yeah,
you kind of feel sickly sweet after reading that. Even
like
though
it makes the problem of slavery kind of almost into a Hallmark card or something like that. Is that
if it were possible to be so? If it were possible to be so. I loved that book when I was like in 5th grade. Loved it.
Did you really?
Uncle Tom's Cabin.
And now you look back and you're like,
well, right, because it's so over the top. Yeah. Right, in a way. But you know what? Uncle Tom's Cabin didn't get banned. Well, it got banned in the South, but not in the North.
Yeah.
So
wasn't good enough to get banned.
Yeah, exactly. Got banned in the South, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so is Huckleberry Finn the great American novel? I mean, a lot of people say that it is, and Twain certainly starts something that later authors develop. So, I mean, one of the big things is what you read at the beginning. It's written in dialect, and that is what Louisa May Alcott is unhappy about. Like, bad grammar, not trying to correct speech, trying to capture the speech of the common people, right? It's the speech of the Americas. So, I mean, Faulkner comes after that. Flannery O'Connor comes after that. Hey, maybe even Cormac McCarthy is in this lineage.
Yeah.
Who else am I missing?
Speaking and capturing a dialect and speaking with that dialect. Yeah. Those three are masters.
They're masters. I don't know if I'm missing anyone else. And then also this is in the trend of the late 19th century. He's writing the common people. Huck and Jim are outcasts in society, right? And the whole book is told from their perspective. Well, I mean, from Huck's perspective, but capturing the story of Jim, the runaway slave. So in that sense, I mean, it's not the same at all, but it has echoes of what Dostoevsky was doing in Russia, right? With Crime and Punishment, like that's an outcast from society. And this is like, you weren't writing about outcasts, right?
Uncommon.
Yeah, uncommon. Okay, so here is the story. And the Mississippi River is a major character in the story, which is just great. Yeah. Like, it's so American to have this aspect of the land be such a driving force within the narrative, right? The Mississippi River, it acts as well. The Mississippi River seems to have some agency within the telling of the story.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of any other book that we might consider classics where the landscape plays so prominent a role as to be considered a character. I'm sure that there are. They're escaping me right now, though.
Right. I mean, I'm thinking of other American novels.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Willa Cather, her novels.
Oh, yeah.
But they're American. Like that is maybe one of the things of the American novel is the front and center nature of the land.
New Mexico, in Death Comes to the Archbishop is such a prominent, it is a big character in that tale.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting, huh?
Tell us about the plot of Huck Finn.
So the plot starts out just like you read. So one of the other interesting things is this is a sequel. I mean, it's not a sequel, but it's the continuation of a story. Another novelist who does this, Wendell Berry.
Oh, great. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm thinking of that because he has his series of novels, right? Set around his little town. Okay, so as Huck has already outed, this is a continuation of the story of Tom Sawyer because Huck appears in Tom Sawyer, but he's a pretty secondary character in Tom Sawyer. So at the opening of the book, Huck has been integrated into society. He's been taken into the widow Douglas's home, and he is going to school, and he is willing, and he's trying to learn. And he doesn't really like it because he's pretty much a feral cat. But he's trying to accommodate himself to the widow Douglas and to the norms of school and boring, settled life. Right? He doesn't like settled life.
Civilized life.
Civilized life. And he's willing to do it. But unfortunately, his abusive father turns up and steals him from the good widow. So, gosh, this book also made me think of how non-important Huck's abuse was in the trajectory of the novel. Like, he refers to it and you feel his fear and it's awful. But do you know what I mean? There isn't anything like, and then I felt the shame and the weight of my father beating me all day long, which is exactly what's happening.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not sort of even commented upon. So he's being abused by his father, and he's being abused by his father because he has $6,000 that he got at the end of Tom Sawyer. So it's horrible. The dad is trying to steal his money. He's abusive. He's a drunk. There is a judge in town that's trying to protect Huck, but nobody can help. So Huck finally fakes his own death. And it's ingenious. It's ingenious how he fakes his death.
Yeah.
He fakes his death, and he ends up on an island in the Mississippi. And at the same time, Jim, the slave of Miss Watson, escapes from Miss Watson because Miss Watson's going to sell him down the river. And he ends up on the island too. And they form an alliance. And they're living on this island, and it's kind of amazing. It's, you know, the island is metaphorical. It's not only metaphorical because they are on their own little land. They are enjoying the fruits of the land. They're sitting out under the stars. It's like the idyllic ability to be outside of civilization, right? But not so great. They figure out.
But just to like harken back to our season on love, this is an episode on philia. The plot really gathers momentum when Huck and Jim become friends. That's what kind of like, there are plot points before that, but that's what really galvanizes the plot, moves us forward, and it's a most unlikely friendship. It's kind of a forbidden friendship in a way.
Yeah, definitely. And that's, you know, the forest in American novels, right? Like the forest, even fairy tales, the forest is both the place of escape outside of civilization, but it's also the place of danger, right? And like, like the benefits and the drawbacks of being outside of civilization. The island is that too, right? The island and the river in some ways is that. Like it's outside of civilization's hold. So they're there. And there's some funny things that happen throughout the novel. Huck is playing tricks and pranks, but he plays a prank on Jim where he puts a dead rattlesnake in Jim's bed and thinks it'll be a real good joke, except that the rattlesnake's mate comes back and bites Jim on the heel, and Jim almost dies.
Yeah.
And Jim has been telling him, we're going to have bad luck because you picked up a snake skin, and here's the bad luck. So they're always having scrapes, right? And they're about to fall into danger all the time, but they somehow make it out. So from the island, Jim is being hunted. They get on a raft, and they're going down the river. I think this is the best part of the book.
This is what everybody thinks of when they think of Huck Finn.
Yeah, it's this
Jim
part of the
and
book.
Huck rolling down the Mississippi.
Yep. The songs written about it.
Yeah.
This is the best part of the book, for sure. And it has this element, you know, Tall Tales. Did you grow up reading Tall Tales?
No. What are Tall Tales?
Like Paul Bunyan and Babe.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
American Tall Tales, right?
Yeah.
Mike Fink and the Steamboat. You know, all of these characters who they're like superheroes before they're superheroes, right? And you get that feeling when they're on the river, like these large landforms, the river, the mountains, they inspire large characters. Yeah. And Jim and Huck are kind of those larger than life characters because they're always getting out of scrapes. The other thing is it's an orphan narrative, and orphan narratives are the best. Did you play orphans when you were a child?
No.
What?
What is it? What is playing orphans? I never played orphans.
You had a deprived childhood. I'm so sorry.
Or I had a fulfilled childhood, Emily.
No.
So you're like, your mom and dad are gone. You've got to learn how to pay the taxes. Is that what an orphan, like playing orphans is?
No, playing orphans is you get your younger siblings or your older siblings, you're a group, and you're like, okay, so let's play that our mom and dad have died, and now we have to make our own house, and we've got to get our food, and we've got to like cook our food, and we've got to make our house. You never played this?
No.
All kids play this.
If I played it, I didn't know that I just don't remember playing it. So is the goal of playing orphans, it's sort of like figuring out how to do the stuff that your mom and dad would do, but now they're pretend dead.
It's agency, right? It's children taking agency. Okay, so think about all of the literature surrounding this. There's the Boxcar Children. There's 5 Children in It. There's there's all sorts of books written around this, like Kids on Their Own. They have to make their way.
David Copperfield.
Yes.
Yeah.
Crispin, which is sort of a newer book written by Avi. Anyway, so we've got two great elements. It's the orphan narrative. It's like the kid figuring out on their own resources, how are they going to make this work? And so this is what they're going to do. So they have some great luck. They come upon a house with a dead man inside, and they, it just so happens that house is stocked with knives, with matches, with candles, right? All the things that they happen to need.
Yeah.
Great. They come upon a steamboat, and they get even more things out of the steamboat. And there's these criminals inside, and they're going to let the criminals sink in the boat, but they decide not to do that, and they send people to rescue them. So this is one of the things with Huck Finn too, is he's always doing the right thing, even though he doesn't intend to do the right thing, right? He's always doing the right thing, even though he doesn't intend to do it. So he's going to let these guys, like, they deserve to die. Sure, they're criminals. They've already talked about killing other people, but he just can't do it. So he goes down the river and tells some people, hey, go back and get those lowlifes off the sinking boat. But nonetheless, they always at the right moment get what they need, which is good. Right?
And it moves our tale forward.
It moves our tale forward. So their goal, this is their goal. Their plan is they're going to make it to the Ohio River, which comes at Cairo, Illinois. They're going to make it there, and then they're going to take a steamboat from there north to Ohio, and they're going to be in the Free States. But as luck would have it, they miss the entrance of the river. They don't go, and now they're heading to the very place that they should not be going. They're going into slave country.
Right.
And now Huck and Jim are separated because their raft is struck by a steamship. So now Huck and Jim are on a separate journey by themselves. Now we have a really funny interlude. And I think it kind of goes to Mark Twain's desire to be more well-read and literary than, you know what I mean? I think that that's part of the reason that he doesn't think Huck Finn is his greatest work, is he somewhat believes the critics. Because right now we go into a Romeo and Juliet moment. We get an interlude where we have Romeo and Juliet appear, which is really funny.
You go back. I don't understand what you mean that he doesn't think this is necessarily his best work, because why?
Because I think he thinks he doesn't want to be known as a comedic writer, right? He's always trying to,
I see. Like,
he writes The Prince and the Pauper. He writes Joan of Arc. Like, he wants to be seen as serious.
Yeah.
And like he has real learning. But we get he's always talking about Shakespeare through this whole book. I thought you would love that. But it's Romeo and Juliet. We've got two rival clans. Huck is the messenger between the daughter of the one family and the son of the other family, and it all goes horribly awry, and he has to flee, but he flees right into Jim. They're back together again. Yes. So now they continue down. And now they come under the influence of these two hilarious characters, the King and the Duke. I don't know if you remember the King and the Duke.
Well, Galen recently reread Huck Finn because she had read a book called James.
Oh, right.
That won all these awards.
That. Yes.
And she was like, it's just not that great.
Yeah.
And so she was like, I want to remember what Huck Finn is like. And she just loved rereading Huck Finn. And The King and the Duke, she brought up as like, you got to, and so she read me excerpts aloud. It's been such a long time since I had read Huck Finn. So yeah, these characters really stuck out to her too.
Yeah, they're sort of prototypical characters that you find on the frontier or in less civilized places, right? They're charlatans. They come into towns and they have a great story. Oh, and he is so funny when he captures them speaking English. It's so funny. And it's so funny to think about a time and a place where these people have never heard a British accent, right? Yeah. So they're actually capable of making them believe this is what British English sounds like. And they invent words. One of my favorite words that is invented is Huck saying pre for or destination for predestination, or destination. But the king and the duke are doing this all the time, but they're able to outwit people, and they're going to outwit these poor orphaned women whose inheritance they're going to steal. And Huck, once again, cannot stand by, even though he knows it's going to be terrible for him. He can't stand by while they get this money out of these girls. And so he turns them in. And once again, he finds himself in a huge scrape. But dun da da dum, who should turn up but Tom Sawyer?
Our old friend, Tom Sawyer. Friend.
Now, I'm going to say that when Tom Sawyer reappears, I think that the novel takes a turn for the worst.
Because Huck takes a back seat a little bit.
Completely takes a back seat. It's very strange. And I'm not sure what Mark Twain's thinking was on that.
Yeah.
But we get Tom's character. And one of the terrible things that's happened in this scrape up with the king and the duke is that Jim has now been sold back into slavery. So Tom has a great idea for freeing Jim, but I kind of couldn't handle reading it. Like, he doesn't just free him because they could just free him. It has to be this elaborate story, play acting, that Tom creates that they must do. So Jim must write and write and write on like pieces of paper on a tin plate. Jim can't even write. He's like, what am I supposed to write? I don't even know what this is. They have to steal things, and Jim has to make a rope, and it's ridiculous. And Huck just goes along with it. So yeah, the passivity of Huck sort of doesn't feel real because he's had so much agency the entire novel. So eventually we spend, 50, 60 pages on this elaborate scheme of Tom's, which is sort of grueling to read. At least that was my feeling.
You want to get back to Huck. You're like, Huck was telling a story. Yeah.
Yeah. And we like Huck.
Yeah.
We like Huck. But it actually doesn't end up that way. So at the end of it, but we do end up with true friendship. So Jim, Huck, and Tom are all escaping at the same time. Tom gets shot in the leg. And Jim and Huck are such good friends and true friends. And Jim, the truest friend of all, because he knows this means he will likely go back into slavery. They go and get a doctor so that Tom won't die. But, of course, when they get the doctor, then it's all found out.
Right.
But never fear. Jim has been freed already. He's been freed by Miss Watson in her will. So he will not be sold back into slavery. The boys are saved. And it ends with a final quote from Huck, where he says, "But I reckon I got to light out for the territory ahead of the rest because Aunt Sally, she's going to adopt me and civilize me, and I can't stand it. I've been there before." The end. So there you go. That's the end.
Emily, is there anything about that end is civilization, according to Huck, not just boring because you have to do math and sit in a one-room schoolhouse all day, but is civilization also kind of civilization created Jim the slave?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm going to read you this. This is right after. So there is a moment where Huck starts feeling convicted because he realizes, oh my gosh, I have stolen property. Jim is stolen property. I should, if what's right is right, I should turn him back in. That's the right thing to do. That's what society says is the right thing to do. Yeah. So he's about to do it. But he comes upon slave catchers who are trying to catch Jim, and he hears how they're talking, and he's like, I can't do it. So then he pretends that he has a dread disease, and the slave catchers leave him because they don't want to get the dread disease. But the implication is this. Well, let me just read what he says, and then we'll talk about it. So the slave catchers go off. I got aboard the raft, feeling bad and low because I knowed very well I had done wrong. And he's saying he had done wrong because he hadn't told them about Jim.
Yeah.
And I see it weren't no use for me to try to learn to do right. A body that don't get started right when he's little ain't got no show. When the pinch comes, there ain't nothing to back him up and keep him to his work. And so he gets beat. Then I thought a minute and says to myself, hold on. Suppose you done right and give Jim up, right? So that's the right thing in this situation.
Yeah.
Would you feel better than what you do now? No, says I. I'd feel bad. I'd feel just the same way I do now. Well, then, says I, what's the use you learning to do right when it's troublesome to do right and ain't no trouble to do wrong? And the wages is just the same. I was stuck. I couldn't answer that. So I reckoned I wouldn't bother no more about it. But after this, always do whichever came handiest at the time. There's that moral pragmatism, right?
Right.
This is what's making Louisa May Alcott incensed, because he's like, well, society has told me this is the right thing, but I don't think it's the right thing. I'm not going to do that to Jim, so I'm not going to do it. So I'm just going to do whatever comes handiest at the time. So there you go, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing of civilization, and that's part of what T.S. Eliot's brilliant insight in that quote is. Huck, like, it's clear it would be really horrible to turn him back to these men who are saying what they're going to do to him when they get him back, right? I mean, that's not going to be any good. So he's not going to do that. So there's part of his moral calculation. But this is always held up as a book about friendship, first and foremost, the friendship of Jim and Huck. But, you know, the book now, we didn't talk about it at the beginning. We sort of talked about the reason it was banned in the past. But the reason it's banned now is that the N-word is used through the entire book.
Yeah, everywhere.
The entire book. So as I was reading it, and, you know, there are these parts just like that where Huck is like, I'm not going to turn Jim back in. I'll read another passage where he recognizes how much he relies upon Jim. But I was thinking, if I were African American and this is an American classic, would I have my child read this book?
Right.
Would you?
It's I don't know.
I know.
I don't know.
So I go ahead.
Okay, maybe I could like qualify my answer by saying, if my child could articulate what that word meant during the writing of the book and what it means now. I understand there's not a massive difference, but I still think there's probably a difference. I would be inclined to say, read it.
Well, I asked one of my friends who's African American, I just like, how do you read this book? Like, what are your feelings about the book? Well, she had two interesting things that she said. She said, first, she thinks the central question of the book is, can an adult and a child be friends? I was like, oh.
Really?
That's a really interesting question. And I think that she's asking that. I mean, I haven't had a long discussion, but I think she's asking that because of the notion of equality, right? That like friendship entails a sort of equality that's not shared between an adult and a child.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. But then she said she does not read it as racist. But she said she feels that's because she grew up in a racial world, which I also think is a really interesting observation. She said her children do read it as racist. And she said, but they are children of progress.
Interesting.
Interesting. A fascinating observation. So, but I mean, that's the reason it's banned now, because even without that, there are problematic portrayals of African Americans.
Right.
Even without the N-word, it's not, I mean, Huck is always talking about, oh, Jim, he's so superstitious, and all of that. So he sort of parrots, prevailing notions of who African Americans are. So you're not getting the embodied experience of African Americans, which I think is the point of that book, James, right? That was the point of that book.
Okay. I just want to interject here something, and Galen struggled a little bit with that book because she felt that the author made Jim into this tremendously sophisticated person.
Yeah.
Have you heard this complaint about that book?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And she just thought, how do I reconcile this with Huck Finn and like the reality of slavery in the 19th century?
Yeah.
And so it was a real struggle for her. She was just like, the plausibility test seems to be failing here.
Well, and that's totally fair. And that does a disservice in the other direction, right? So what Eliot is bringing out about the brilliance of Huck Finn, James sort of misses that point, because in some ways that's akin to what Harriet Beecher Stowe was doing with Uncle Tom's Cabin, right?
I see. Huh. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not true to the person. Like, that's part of what strikes us with Huck is the trueness of the character, like the way Twain is able to give Huck voice, and bring to light his world. But I do want to ask the question, do you think an adult and child can be friends? But I want to read this passage because it's really good. So Huck has played a trick on Jim where Jim, he stages his own death, and Jim really thinks that Huck has died, and he goes to sleep, and then Huck comes back, ha ha ha, I'm alive, no problem. But this is Jim's response to Huck when he does that. But when Jim did get the thing straightened around, he looked at me steady without ever smiling and says, "What do you stand for? I's going to tell you. When I got all wore out with work and with calling for you and went to sleep, my heart was most broke because you was lost. And I didn't care no more what became of me or de Raff. And when I wake up and find you back again, I kiss your foot. I's so thankful. And all you was thinking about was how you could make a fool of old Jim with a lie? Dat truck is trash. And trash is what people is that puts dirt on the head of their friends and makes them ashamed." Sorry for my reading of that. Then he got up slow and walked to the wigwam and went in there without saying anything but that. But that was enough. It made me feel so mean I could almost kissed his foot. It was 15 minutes before I could work myself up to go and humble myself to a Negro. But I'd done it. I didn't do him no more mean tricks. So there is the acceptance of the other, right? That Huck shows to Jim.
Yeah. Jim
is a real person. Jim has real feelings. Not only that, Jim is devoted to Huck. And Huck all of a sudden is ashamed for his lack of sympathy towards Jim. Once again, there we get it. We get the real person, Jim himself, right? And that's very compelling. And we get Huck has grown up in a racist world, but he recognizes what I did was wrong and I need to ask Jim's forgiveness.
Yeah.
Huge, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Huge. So from that, I think you could say that they're friends. And I have this great quote about friendship that I just want to read to you from another book that I'm reading. But I think it answers the question of equality, because this man says, this is Andrew Willard Jones, he said, a friend is not a repetition of the self. He is another self, a different self, an analogical self. This is the only reason why he is not incredibly boring. Friends who are peers are equally unequal.
That's a great line.
Friends shift back and forth, trading the positions of authority and obedience, of teacher and learner, of ruler and ruled, leading each other deeper into ever more perfect virtues, which analogically include the other, producing unity and peace. Isn't that great?
Great quote.
So what this means is that all the dynamics of the father-son relationship, which is an unequal relationship, are present in the friendship, only in the mode of friendship rather than that of parent and child. So from that standpoint, I'm going to answer the question that, yes, I think that adults and children can be friends if that dynamic is present, right? There has to be an equal inequality. Yes, and actually you see that in their friendship.
Yeah. That's a great observation, Emily. That's a great observation.
Well, thanks. So there
Hey,
you go. Should we take a break?
A quick break. So we're reading classics together. That's, Hot Takes on the Classics is our title. You and I have both taught at classical schools, and maybe our listeners are interested in having their kids get classically educated, but maybe they don't know where to start. Great news. The Scollay Academy is now open for registration for the 2025-26 school year. Scollay, Emily, do you know what that word means? It's an old Greek word.
I do. Doesn't it mean leisure?
It does. So restful learning. A Scollay education is a learning from restfulness. That's the English word. That's the root for the English word school, Scollay.
It sure is.
At Scollay Academy, instructors foster deep engagement to cultivate learning that lasts. All sorts of great classes: Latin, writing and rhetoric, American history, math foundations, and, of course, classical literature. Go check out classicalacademicpress.com. Emily, back to our show.
Okay, ready for the hot takes?
I'm so curious. I'm ready.
I think Huck Finn is an uneven novel. Is it the great American novel? I'm not sure. I mean, I know that I'm on the outside of that. I think everybody thinks it is the great American novel. I think it's super influential, but is it the great American novel? It's an uneven novel. I think if Twain had continued with Huck and Jim against the world, it might have retained that. But I kind of think the ending, it really pulls it down.
Yeah.
The whole...
And the Tom section.
The Tom section. The Tom section, if he had cut the Tom section out, I might call it the great American novel. What do you think? Do you think it's the great American novel?
It's hard because it deals with kind of like the American wound. Slavery is like the American wound.
It does.
There are so many tropes in the book. The river, like
archetypes. It's archetypal.
Yeah. That I think is part of what nominates it. But I agree with you. It's uneven.
Thank you.
And I've been trying to think about like the other books that I think are really, really great.
Yeah.
That are maybe like not American novels. There's uneven parts in War and Peace and in Crime and Punishment.
That's fair.
But I think maybe to support your point, those uneven parts, the valleys are a little less low.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe the case.
Yeah.
Honestly, if we could just take the Tom bit out, I think it might, if he had just had an editor. I don't know. But I mean,
they were probably terrified of him. Editors were probably terrified of Mark Twain.
I think that they were. And, we never commented on his name, but Mark Twain is from, that's what they would say when they were out on the riverboat, right? Because he was a steamboat rider, or he was a steamboat worker for years and years. Because his name is really Samuel Clemens, which is also very interesting. I do think, I mean, what we've discussed with its racial quality, I do see that as hard. I mean, I don't think it shouldn't be read because of that, but I do see that as difficult, especially. Yeah. I mean, if just like I said, if I were African American, I would think I would feel very differently about the portrayal of my ancestors in the book.
Yeah.
Not that it shouldn't be read. So. I'm not saying that. But anyway, it's fun. It does highlight. I mean, what looms in our memories about Huck Finn are Huck and Jim on the river, right? That is what we think of. And in that essence, it is a great story of friendship, of learning to die for the other. Because, Huck sacrifices for Jim and Jim sacrifices for Huck. And there is that beautiful companionship that these two sort of on the fringes of society, these two characters give to each other that they have never received from anyone else. So from that aspect, it's great. Okay, here are my questions.
I'm ready.
Huck Finn versus Tom Sawyer.
Huck Finn.
Absolutely. Adventures of Huck Finn versus The Great Gatsby.
Oh, Adventures of Huck Finn.
Oh, yeah.
I am not. I am not a believer in The Great Gatsby.
I know. I'm putting up other things that are nominated as the Great American Novel and seeing what you think. Adventures of Huck Finn versus The Sun Also Rises.
Oh, I recognize that Huck Finn is a more important book to me. The Sun Also Rises is like a zenith point in American literature.
I mean, I kind of agree.
Yeah,
it's a tighter novel.
Oh yeah, there's not a weak moment in the book, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's a tighter novel. Summer versus winter, because we're in the middle of summer and it's really hot.
Okay, I live in Atlanta. The answer is winter. I mean, oh my gosh. When I was in London last week, I was talking to one of the guys who worked at the museum there, and he said, "Where are you from?" Atlanta. "Oh, it's nice and hot. I wish I lived in Atlanta." I was like, "No, you don't.
You don't.
No,
yeah.
you don't." He said, "Oh yeah, I love hot weather." And I was like, "This is different.
Yeah,
this is living in a swamp." With
no, a sauna. It's a sauna.
Yeah, completely.
The Mississippi River versus the Danube.
You don't say Danube. You say Danube.
I don't know. Danube.
Oh, okay.
Are you criticizing my
it's another one. It's like I'm picking the Mississippi River because I live in the United States. But
I'm agreeing with you on every
pick. Does the beauty
pick.
Compare? The
no,
Danube is a more beautiful river.
Is it? I'm thinking of its archetypal importance. I was trying to think of an important river in Europe, and I was like, what's the most important one? The Danube has got to be it. Probably the Seine. I should have said the Seine.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that would have made it a tougher call. Yeah.
Okay, Mississippi versus the Seine. There you go.
Mississippi.
Yeah, me
Still.
too. Yeah. Mark Twain versus Hemingway.
Oh, my gosh.
Don't you like dichotomous questions?
Great. Yeah.
Don't you like either or questions?
I'm going to say Hemingway. Hemingway.
Me too.
It's like this. I
can't believe I'm agreeing with you.
Right? You have such great taste. Hemingway is like one of these guys. He is such a titan that people sometimes, I think, don't think of him as an absolute master of literature. They think of him as like a big swashbuckling, pin-wielding, subway lassoing, like hero for all time.
He's a little bit where his persona gets in the way of his writing.
Exactly.
Which is kind of interesting.
It is. I know. If you just let the writing do its work on its own,
right?
He's almost without peer for me. I just think he's
I know.
So extraordinary.
I was asking that question. It's funny to think about because, of course, this book is so influential to all further streams. I mean, to Hemingway himself.
Yeah.
Of American writing. But like from a craft perspective, like Hemingway, even though he annoys me at times, he's so much, it is just tighter, but maybe that's just our perspective now on this side of things, right? That like that tightness is what is compelling.
Yeah. It's really compelling. Hey, Emily, we've reached the end of another episode on this one on Huck Finn. Tune in next week as we continue a season on love. We are going to shift into eros or romantic love. We want to thank Clark Stefanik, our producer, and also Tom Hagerman, who wrote and performed our music. Emily, I'm looking forward to next episode.
Me too, Tim. We'll see you then.
See you then.